Straight up. Bible study on season. Glory to God. Okay, let's keep going. We are in Revelation chapter 14. We were in verse 4 when we went to the break, so let's start again at verse 4. These are they which were not defiled with women. We're talking about the 144,000. For they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. These are 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And in their mouth was found no guile. What's guile? Guile is sly or cunning intelligence. They are not sly and cunning. They are genuine. Okay? For they are without fault before the throne of God. You know why? Because Jesus died for them and they have been sealed after the Gentile evacuation. In verse 6, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Now notice that those who don't know are not going to, there's not going to be anybody that doesn't know anymore at this point. There's an angel flying through the sky proclaiming the everlasting gospel. So there's not going to be any mistake about what the everlasting gospel actually is at this point. And he preaches unto them that dwell on the earth and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. Now this angel is attempting to prevent any child of God from worshiping the dragon in error. It won't happen. It's not permitted to happen. In verse 8, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. This is the destruction of Rome. Because, see, keep in mind that the snake in a dress pope, who is possessed by the dragon, Satan himself, he has taken over the world, basically, and he is forcing his new world order down everyone's throat. Now, because of that, you're going to have elements on the earth that go, no, you don't get to tell us what to do, and Rome is going to be destroyed, probably by the 10 kings, at Satan's command, because at a certain point he becomes jealous of the church. Now the people are instructed to worship the Pope through the church when they take the mark, but that's not good enough for the dragon. He wants to be worshiped directly. And so you have the destruction of Rome, and it is the 10 kings that do the destroying of the church. The church is destroyed and its assets are seized, and no more Vatican. The Pope, snake in a dress, is ruling from the temple in Jerusalem. So he's not there anyway at the Vatican. In verse 9, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. You do not want to take the mark of the beast. No child of God's going to take it. It's not permitted. No child of God is going to be lost. The only ones who take the mark are those, remember, Revelation 13:8, those whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life. They are the only ones that are going to take the mark. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. They are the object of God's wrath, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels. Now notice, they're not killed, they're tormented with fire and brimstone. They can't die. They have taken the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast can prevent you from physically dying. And that's bad news for them, really, because as the mark of the beast traps you inside your digital body, so you can't escape it. And that's going to really be a bad thing as your body begins to rot and decay with you inside it, trapped without being able to die. You can't escape it. Can't escape your digital body here. So it says, he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. They're tormented because they can't die. It doesn't say they're killed. It says they're tormented. In verse 11, and the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night. Now see, once they take the mark, they can't sleep anymore either. They can't die, and they can't sleep anymore. They have no rest day nor night. Who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. No sleep for them, no death for them, and they will cry out and beg for death, and death will flee from them. In verse 12, here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. They do not take the mark of the beast. They do not take the mark of the beast. No child of God will do so. But when you have a situation where this mark can prevent you from physically dying, that's going to have a great appeal to the tares and the wicked, because this is the only heaven they get. Okay? So here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Now notice when it says here's the patience of the saints, it said that once before over here, didn't it? In verse 10 of chapter 13, here's the patience and the faith of the saints. It's talking about those who lead into captivity would go into captivity. And then over here, here's the patience and the faith of the saints where the mark is concerned. Every child of God will refuse the mark of the beast, and they will be executed for refusing to take it. And in verse 13 of chapter 14, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. The children of God who die during the second half, they are blessed which die in the Lord, because they will be, there isn't the same kind of separation of the body and then, a long time before they are regenerated. Once they die during the second half, they are instantly in the presence of the Lord and given their white robes. They have their regenerated body, even though their heads were cut off. And blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. So they will have great testimony for the second half as they stand all the way to their death for Jesus Christ. In verse 14 of Revelation 14, and I looked, and behold, a white cloud. And upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Now, this may be a pretty good description of what you see the King when he shows up in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. They can see him on his throne. They can see his face. And then you have a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man. When it uses the term Son of Man, what it's saying is that this person you see has a human form. And when it speaks of Son of God, that is the glorified Savior that has the head and hairs that are white like wool, eyes as a flame of fire. Okay, so when it uses the term Son of Man, it's saying that this form is human, looks human. And he has on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. In verse 15, and another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. Now, if you're harvested, you die. Okay? If you're gathered, you live. See, the evacuation is a gathering, but this is a reaping. This is a harvest. So it says here in verse 16, and he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. That's pretty heavy, isn't it? The earth was reaped. In verse 17, and another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Now, we are not grapes, okay? Those who go into the wine press are the grapes. Those who go into the wine press are those who move against Israel and are killed and fall in the valley to the east of the sea. So we are not the grapes, okay? So don't go thinking this is talking about us. Look at 18 again. Another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. The grapes are not believers. Okay? In verse 19, and the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. See, this shows you the grapes are not the children of God. Okay? They are cast into the great winepress of the wrath of God. So, we are not the grapes, okay? In verse 20, and the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress even unto the horses' bridles by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Wow. What this is saying is that as this angel thrusts in his sickle, it says he is to gather the clusters of the vine of the earth and cast them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. This angel's sickle causes the nations who are going into this winepress. You're looking at Russia, Turkey, and Iran specifically, as well as all those violent Muslims who want to see Israel destroyed. They are going to go into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden without the city. And blood came out of the winepress, even into the horses' bridles. That is a lot of blood. By the space of 1,600 furlongs. This is a lot of blood to be as deep as the horses' bridles. And it's several miles long. Now, does anybody have any questions where chapter 14 is concerned? Let me come over here and check on you guys that are on Facebook. Glad to see all of you. Oh, there's my cousin. Hi, Fred. Great to see you. I'm glad you're here. He's my cousin. I'm really happy to see you. Long time no see. Now let's get into chapter 15. Now, let me go over here to YouTube and see if there's any questions over here on YouTube. Crash Bash. Hello. Crash Bash says, I have a question. What is this called when a person has no interest what society, rather you just do what you do, but don't do what society do, you know, trend and stuff, while other do it and you don't. That's called keeping yourself unspotted from the world in the scriptures. Okay. That's right. Anne gave us, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Learning the word. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will. That's in Romans 12. Yes? Oh, you give us some good scriptures here, sister. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Now he's saying, what if you don't follow trends where people shout on streets and protest like today? It's better if you don't. It is better if you don't. That's not how the children of God handle things. Okay. The world hates us, and it's always going to hate us. We're never going to convince it not to hate us. And protesting and being an activist is trying to get the world to do what you want it to do. And it's never going to do what you want to do. You're wasting your time as a child of God on activism. Let's go into chapter 15 and verse 1. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous. 7 angels having the 7 last plagues. For in them is filled up the wrath of God. Now this is vials, vile judgments. The vile judgments are poured only upon the wicked. Only upon those who took the mark of the beast. Okay? Because remember, they can't sleep and they can't ever die. They can't die during these judgments. They live. They cannot physically die. They are trapped in their digital body and they cannot escape. So, let's see. He says in chapter 15, verse 1, I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous. 7 angels having the 7 last plagues. Now this would be the vile judgments. For in them is filled up the wrath of God, undiluted. in verse 2, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. So see, before the vial judgments ever begin, you see those who got the victory over the beast, over his image, over his mark, over the number of his name, standing on this sea of glass. This is a picture of what's going on in heaven. And they have harps, the harps of God, in verse 3. And they sing the song of Moses. See, these are Jews. They're singing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Oh, don't you just love him? In verse 4, who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? Everybody is going to. For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee. For thy judgments are made manifest. He's taking over. He is replacing the New World Order with his own millennial kingdom, his own millennial reign. He's going to be on the throne and get rid of the New World Order and establish a kingdom of righteousness. It's going to be so great. In verse 5, and after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. And 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. The golden girdles are like it's kind of like a breastplate, or not just a breastplate, but like an upper armor thing of gold. Okay, that's solid, has the dip for the neck here, probably ends here, and it's all just solid gold metal here over the chest. Let's see. So these angels came out of the temple. They've got the 7 plagues. They're clothed in white linen, and they have these golden girdles across their chests. In verse 7, and one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels, or these golden girdles could be a gold band that goes around the midsection. Okay, that's possible too. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 vials, 7 golden vials, full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. So this is God's wrath that is about to be poured out on the earth. We've already seen that those who take the mark have no rest day nor night. Death flees from them. They are not able to die. They will beg to die, and they can't. They can't. They must be here to have the judgment poured out upon them during the vials, the wrath of God. And see, you have, well, I won't go there. Okay. And verse 8. And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. And no man was able to enter into the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled. So we are not able to go into the temple in heaven. We're watching all these things happen. And we can't go in until the vial judgments are poured out. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after. Straight up.